Kaido preached about the importance of Haki against Luffy, how Roger didn't have a devil fruit and only Haki can conquer the world. And he said all of this while fighting against the most ridiculous power in the world, which was granted by a devil fruit. And beneath them, 3 of the 4 top commanders from either side, being King, Queen and Sanji, are all a product of their genetics or lineage factor / bloodline element, or technology, both of which have a spot in the realm of science. And now we are on Egghead, the most technologically advanced location in the modern One Piece world, and is kind of the culmination of everything science related in the story up to this point, stated to be 500 years ahead of everyone else, and the latest chapter 1115, further solidifies the validity of that statement in my view. So the question is, will science, just as much as anything else could, prove to be the defining factor in deciding the outcome of the final war? So firstly, Vegapunk's message is ongoing, and his latest words have shed more light on just how advanced the ancient kingdom actually was. Again, there's differences depending on the translation. This video will follow the unofficial. He said that the weapons that existed during the Void Century are far beyond their modern science, and the technology baffles even a genius such as himself, and that the 200-meter rise in the global sea level was thanks to the man-made calamities, the ancient weapons. So this limited information basically states that the current state of the world is thanks to the advancements of science, and a similar situation is coming together in the present story kind of. Obviously the ancient weapons are still around and are eventually going to come back into play, but also with the Seraphim, artificially created beings with Lunarian DNA from each of the warlords, and devil fruit splicing to create what the government have made to be the replacements of one of the 3 great powers in the 7 warlords, and what Vegapunk said himself are the strongest forms of humanity. So the government is obviously expecting big things from them. And then you have the Mother Flame, whose origins aren't really clear, but it looks like it's being stabilized thanks to scientific methods, and is the key to unlocking the power of the scientific tools in the ancient weapons. So it very much seems that on a larger scale than just say who wins the battles in the final war, science is looking like the thing that will shape the world. Vegapunk said that the weapons of the Void Century are far beyond modern science, and it's said that Egghead is 500 years ahead of the rest of the world. So let's take that statement literally and say that it would take the rest of the world around 500 years to reach Egghead Island's level of advancement. That would mean that the Void Century, or the Ancient Kingdom more specifically, was possibly twice as advanced as anything Vegapunk has currently cooked up, since the Void Century began 900 years ago, so near enough a millennium ago to round it up, and Vegapunk said that the kingdom existed over 900 years ago, so let's go with 1000 years. I am taking all of this as meaning Vegapunk is, or was I guess, only halfway there in replicating the technology and science of the ancient kingdom. I mentioned in a previous video the parallels or similarities between the Library of O'Hara and the real-life Library of Alexandria, and how regardless of how true this statement actually is, some people claimed its burning set humanity back 1000 years. So all in all, Vegapunk is only 50% of the way there in bringing back the glory of the ancient kingdom. And that basically means we still haven't really seen much of what they were capable of back then, what they were really able to do, apart from the supposed ancient weapon Uranus used to destroy Lucia, and depending on how you look at it, the Iron Giant. Out of those two, I'll start with the Iron Giant because there's a lot more to say on the ancient weapons. So it's a giant iron robot built during the Void Century that attacked Marijois 200 years ago, but shut down after running out of energy before it could do any major damage. My idea, or not my idea, but the theory I subscribe to, is that the Iron Giant is powered by the Drums of Liberation, and that it was sent forward in time by Toki to 200 years ago and ran out of energy because the drums were no longer present, and it's active now thanks to Luffy using Gear 5 and being in close proximity on Egghead. My idea of how this is a science-based activation is that sound can be used as energy, and it's released thanks to the vibrations of objects like drums, which moves through the air as sound waves. These waves will have oscillating compressions and will lose energy the more they travel, which you can use as an explanation for the Iron Giant running out of energy, or why it never activated when Luffy first went Gear 5 in Wano, because it was so far away that the energy just dissipated before being able to reach Egghead. Of course, sound has different cadences or pitches, and this is thanks to the frequency of the sound wave. So I believe that the ancient kingdom either discovered or developed a specific frequency that the robot would react to and only at that frequency would it react, and the drums of liberation play at that frequency. Either that or the rhythm of the drums with certain hits at certain times is what triggers it, like a specific pattern. In the real world, sound isn't really used for power because it only produces a very small amount of energy, but that still means it is possible in theory, and also we are talking about the ancient kingdom here, so maybe there was something that allowed them to produce a much greater amount of energy from sound that I wouldn't know the specifics about, but it's a possibility, it's definitely on the cards. And the other thing with the Iron Giant is the fact that it is sentient. Artificial intelligence is a bigger topic now more than ever, and the idea of robots eventually having intellect on the level of humans has always been a major point of discussion. So that's the simple conclusion, that the ancient kingdom was able to reach that level of tech and applied it to the robot, giving it its consciousness, its individuality. But there's another option, which is that instead of the robot gaining its own unique personality once gaining sentience, someone had their mind or their consciousness uploaded to or linked to it, essentially resulting in the same thing as what Ed had to do with Alphonse and the body of armor in Full Metal Alchemist. Or better yet, rather than their mind, their soul, so I guess even more like the Alphonse situation, because you do not need reminding of how massive the theme of the soul and individuality has been throughout this entire arc. So whatever Vegapunk was trying to achieve with his own research with Kuma, or the Seraphim, or the Sea Beast weapons, the key to that lies with the Iron Giant, because the geniuses of that time achieved that very thing that Vegapunk wanted to achieve, that level of understanding of the soul through that robot. So that's the science behind it, but what about its actual importance in the story? While it's currently walking amongst the carnage on Egghead Island, although its purpose seems unclear, I think it's most likely making its way to Luffy, the current source of the drums of liberation, and it will stay close to him since sound dissipates the further it travels. Let's say the giant absorbs a great amount of energy the closer it is to the source of the drums, so it may even be able to stay active when Luffy isn't in Gear 5, thanks to absorbing that greater amount of energy. And its ultimate purpose beyond that is probably the same as 200 years ago, to lay waste to the Holy Land of Marijua, and the magnitude of that happening needs no explanation really. So then we have the ancient weapons, 3 catastrophic powers, Pluton, Uranus, Poseidon, named after the respective Greek-Roman gods of the earth, sky and sea. Firstly, Poseidon, the power of the mermaid princess, and the only one we have actually seen in the form of Shirahoshi, the latest to inherit that power. Pluton, an ancient battleship previously built by Water 7, whose blueprints were burnt by Franky and now resting underneath Wano, and Uranus, which we don't know anything about but is speculated to be responsible for the destruction of Lelucia, starting with the one we know the most about, but also the one that is the most tricky, thanks to information from the latest chapter. Although it holds the title of weapon, Poseidon is a living being, and revisiting Vegapunk's words, he said that the disaster, the great rise in sea level 800 years ago, was caused by ancient weapons technology. Pay close attention to the wording there, not by the ancient weapons, but ancient weapons technology. In present day Shirahoshi, Poseidon is a friend and ally of Luffy, and if the theory of Uranus being what destroyed Lelucia turns out to be true, that means it is in possession of Emu and the 5 elders. So they are on opposite sides, and now that makes me think that the ancient weapons were spread across opposing sides of the Great War during the Void Century as well. And the fact that Poseidon is a living being is important. Just like today, the mermaid princess of 800 years ago would have been on Joyboy's side, and I think Uranus would have been on the other side. Pluton, I will get to. I think Poseidon was one of the first, if not the first, ancient weapon because of the fact it is a living person and not man-made. How Poseidon's power came about, I don't really know. But let's just say, for simplicity's sake, it's to do with the voice of all things, and that the mermaid princess did something that helped the Sea Kings, and the power was born from that or something. Some kind of pact maybe. But now we have Poseidon, and then comes Uranus, which I think was an attempt by the 20 kingdoms to try and replicate the power that the mermaid princess had gained, which is why it is in the hands of Emu and the world government. And also why Vegapunk mentioned ancient weapons technology. But that then begs the question, how did the 20 kingdoms have access to such advanced tech, when wasn't the ancient kingdom supposed to be the most advanced? Exactly, and the ancient kingdom was the place with the knowledge and tech available to make such a thing possible. and that's where we bring Pluton back in, the final of the three. There are theories about what it is, from the Thousand Sunny to a mole. We have one ancient weapon which is a living being, one which is pure technology. So now how about an ancient weapon that is a mixture of the two? Kind of like how Franky is a cyborg. And if we say that Pluton is an animal, maybe some kind of advanced armor to enhance its strength and abilities, and this would make sense as to why there are blueprints to create something that is strong enough and fits whatever creature Pluton is, and as well as why Sukiyaki said that Pluton is resting or sleeping under Wano. And to bring it back to Uranus, I would say that the armor or cybernetic enhancements of Pluton were created first, and the coalition of the 20 kings or the allied powers at the time stole that tech to make Uranus, making it the last of the three ancient weapons. And now, to bring it back to the specifics of Vegapunk's words again, I think there is a chance that there were more than just the three of them. The technology was obviously available at the time, and Vegapunk specifically saying ancient weapons technology makes me think that, just maybe, that tech was used to make even more weapons. They wouldn't have reached the destructive power of the main three, but maybe when the 20 kings got their hands on the tech, they had multiple attempts to create a weapon, and the one that ended up being successful was Uranus, the only success, leaving many others not quite as powerful but still strong, just lying around. So to go over all of that, we have Joyboy and the Ancient Kingdom in possession of Poseidon and Pluton, and then Emu and the world government, or the 20 kings at the time, in possession of Uranus. And we have the Mother Flame, which is most likely the power source for the technological side, and there we have it, the science behind the ancient weapons, kind of. And as for their importance, again, it's something that doesn't need too much of an explanation. They are powers capable of shaping the landscape of the entire world. So in conclusion, yes, Haki and Devil Fruits are extremely important parts of the story, but when you look at the bigger picture, the liberation of the world's science is right alongside them, maybe even eclipsing them. Even before the Egghead arc, the topic of science was pretty big. Look at Caesar and everything he did. Look at Windsmoke Judge and everything he did. Really just look at anything science-based really in One Piece and it all matters. And also, on a side note, all of it runs seamlessly through Vegapunk, which is crazy given how he was only introduced 50 chapters ago, or fully introduced. But anyway, it's ridiculous that all three, Haki, Devil Fruits and Science, like three separate power systems or something similar, they each have their place in the story at pretty big places at that. What we learn of the advancements of tech in the Void Century and how it will impact the story if it appears in present day, I don't know. But there is definitely more coming.